DKDB Nashville.
Hello, friends. It's your buddy Lou Pickney with you here. The DKDB update, March 6th, 2026. Got a bunch of updates in the DKDB over the last couple of days. This is my human-curated, expert-curated 2026 NFL mock draft database. I put the best of the best in the DKDB. No AI, no filler, no tandem efforts. Real people know what's going on with the NFL draft and are skilled at predicting it. These all link directly to the respective mock drafter in the site. I include what I consider notable picks or projections. Just go through, see the latest. Click on whichever one you want, takes you right to it. Well, that's the DKDB expert curated database. Be sure to bookmark it, check it regularly. Closer and closer. The NFL draft be more and more to keep track of. I want to talk about something first. Trinidad Chambliss. I already created a 2027 prospect page for him. But now it's not so clear that he'll get to play. NCAA doing NCAA type things. Yesterday, challenged the court ruling from the state of Mississippi that granted Trinidad Chambliss a temporary injunction against the NCAA's ruling that he would not have eligibility for this upcoming season. NCAA issued it was a large, I found it here, 658-page petition asking for an expedited review before Ole Miss opens the season against Louisville on September 6th. The petition, NCAA arguing that Ole Miss would break the rules and gain a significant advantage if Chambliss is allowed to play the upcoming season. It's like the NCAA just loves losing in court. How many times you have to take the L's in court before it gets through to you? You lost twice in the U.S. Supreme Court. You got to let it go. Anyway, so it's going to be, if they somehow rule against Chambliss, that would be exceptionally frustrating. Man's got a chance to make millions of dollars, or however much it's going to be. I think it would be a multi-million-dollar deal at Ole Miss. A significant amount of money. And because of NCAA, again, he had, a 92-page? He had evidence of his tonsillitis that caused him a lot of problems, as I understand it, during the season in question when he was at Ferris State. Anyway, it feels like almost like the NCAA is being vindictive. Maybe that's not the case, but it feels that way. And there are many things I like about the NCAA. I'm not all negative about them. I love Division III. I love Division III so much. A little bit different when you're talking about D1. Anyway, it'd be a real shame if Chambliss ends up being ruled ineligible, but we'll see what happens there. But I think it's worth noting. NCAA, call off your dogs on this one. You're not going to win this fight. Or if you do, the public sentiment against you is going to be overwhelming to the negative. You got to think these things through. But seriously, how many times do you have to lose in the U.S. Supreme Court? Just keep on taking those L's. You're not in control anymore. Not in college football, anyway. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. The new mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. Have my reaction to it here. Again, you can link to it. I'll have the link as well in the description of this YouTube video. But of course, in the DKDB, I curated, expert curated, human curated 2026 NFL mock draft database. The first one of 2026 from Brendan Donahue yesterday. Got Jeff Schwartz, his first mock drafts in there. Updated from Luke Easterling. And then the day before that, a bunch. I mean, you get that post-combine rush as we get ready for pro days. Closer and closer to April 23rd, opening night of the 2026 NFL Draft. You can be sure to bookmark this page, the DKDB. The best of the best in here. And to that end, let's get to it. My reaction to brand new mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. Be sure to go and read this. I'll have the link available, as I noted there in that YouTube description, which is also in the DKDB. It's a big list of names right there, but it's easier to go through and have a little bit of spacing to it. So Fernando Mendoza at 1 to the Raiders. Nearly everybody's going to have that at this point. It's a major red flag if you see a mock draft and Mendoza's not at number 1. You're probably running into some sort of gimmick. So at 1, Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders. At 2, Arvell Reese to the Jets. I hardly think that's a lock, to be clear. But Reese, outstanding linebacker with the capacity to play edge. I'm trying to figure out the nomenclature. I guess edge/LB. They classified Reese as an edge at the NFL Combine. But he's a unique player. He's going to the Jets at 2. My reaction. Latest mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. At 3, Matthew has David Bailey, edge rusher, Texas Tech to the Arizona Cardinals. I can see that happening. There's been talk possibly offensive tackle, maybe Jeremiah Love. But here an edge rusher, David Bailey, one of the best in college football last season. 14.5 sacks. Get you strong consideration. At 4, Jeremiah Love to the Tennessee Titans. It's a possibility. You look at the wide receivers out there as far as best available player. More and more you're seeing those receivers not in maybe that top 5 group. And you got Jeremiah Love, who a lot of trusted evaluators have the top 3. And you look at the Titans, say, well, yeah, they need help. The offensive line, maybe day 2 more for that. Wide receiver, edge rusher. But perhaps they want Bailey, and if Bailey's not there, Jeremiah Love could be a very nice addition to that offense. He's his underrated trait, excellent receiver out of the backfield, which is very important in the modern NFL. And again, go through and make sure to read the information that Matthew has in here. He's got some good info here. I like his work. Number 5, New York Giants, Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State. Restarted his career in Columbus as a safety. One of several dynamic and unique players from that Ohio State defense. Top 5 is interesting. Styles over Caleb Downs is interesting as well. That's the way it goes here. At 5, the Giants go Sonny Styles. At 6, Francis Maui-Noah. So Matthew and I thinking alike on that as far as the Browns at 6. The Browns are going to need help on their offensive line. And maybe they won't use both first-round picks on O-line, but they might. Here they go with Maui-Noah. Really good right offensive tackle. Miami Hurricanes. 7, Washington Commanders. Reuben Bain, Jr., edge rusher, Miami. Heard a lot of talk the Commanders are going to give very strong consideration to edge rusher. I think if Arvell Reese, David Bailey, or Reuben Bain Jr. are there, that would be a strong possibility. And here it's Bain going to the Commanders at 7. At 8, Carnell Tate to the New Orleans Saints. In my reaction here, the latest mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. Matthew saying a little bit skeptical when it comes to Carnell Tate. And I expected this. Going into the combine, just knowing that he wasn't going to go out there and run a track star type speed. But he's got tremendous hands and he's great at getting open. And yet there are questions if he's not really a number 1 receiver. Do you use that high of a pick on him? Opinions vary, as they will this time of year. And that 4.53 40-yard dash, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. He's not a track guy. Anyway, Saints get him at 8, a reliable, very consistent receiver. At 9, Kenyon Sadiq, Kansas City Chiefs. So Matthew and I thinking alike on that as well. And that performance by Sadiq at the Combine really solidified him in the mind of a lot of analysts and evaluators. And we'll see what the Chiefs do with salary cap cuts, free agency, etc. If Reuben Bain Jr. is on the board here, they go with him. But if that's not the case, if they need an edge rusher but they don't want to stretch for one, and Sadiq, an obvious fit to potentially replace Travis Kelce. What? Man, try to follow somebody that's had just a tremendous career. And even getting the end of the career Kelce with Sadiq in the same offense. That would be interesting. So if you had Kelce coming back healthy for this upcoming season, Sadiq in there, Patrick Mahomes when he's good to go, could be interesting. At 10, Cincinnati Bengals, Caleb Downs, safety, Ohio State. I think it makes all the sense in the world for Cincinnati to go with Downs if he's on the board. His ability to read and react, really unique. He came into the 2025 college season with a lot of fanfare, a lot of pressure, but he lived up to expectations. There are some questions coming out of the Combine as far as does he have some sort of an injury he's not talking about? But if he's able to go out and work out and show that he's good to go health-wise, then it's unusual for a safety to go in the top. I talk about this a lot, but that's because it's historic. In a sense, there hasn't been a pure safety to go top 10 in the NFL draft in 10 years. But here, Cincinnati gets Downs at 10. My reaction to the latest mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. I have the link in the YouTube description, having the DKDB as well. Bunch of mock drafts in here. Look at all these just the last couple of days that have come in. They're the best of the best in here. The DKDB. Anyway, to continue on with my reaction to the new mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. Number 11, Mansour Delane to the Dolphins. Miami needs help at corner. Delane is the number one cornerback on a lot of draft boards. The talk of Delane as a possible top 5 selection has died down a bit. But as far as team needs goes, it wouldn't be a stretch to take him at 11. And if he's there, it makes sense for Miami to go with Mansour Delane at number 11. At 12, Dallas Cowboys, Jermod McCoy, corner from Tennessee, as noted, if he's healthy. And I don't think we would hear more if there were serious questions about his health. Well, he didn't run at the Combine. He suffered a torn ACL in January of last year. Didn't play at all last season. In 2024, he had a great year with the Tennessee Vols. And look, if he goes out at his pro day in Knoxville and goes through the drills and shows that he's good to go, top 12, I can see it. Dallas has need at corner. Dallas also has a pick at number 20. I think if Sonny Styles were here, that might be the move for Dallas. Or Caleb. You hear a lot of talk about Caleb Downs. But if Downs goes at 10, then obviously not there at 12 for Dallas. At 13, the Los Angeles Rams, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver, USC. The Rams have traded the number 29 overall pick, Kansas City. So they get the corner McDuffie to come in, fill a big need there. And here at 13, I think there's a pretty decent chance that what are generally considered the top 3 receivers between Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. At least one of those 3 is likely to be on the board here at number 13. And here they get Mekhi Lemon, LA Rams. They're a unanimous first-team All-American last year. Had a great season with the Trojans. At 14, Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson. His ability to pressure quarterbacks as an interior defensive lineman. That tremendous quickness works to his benefit. In the right system, he could really thrive. Here he goes to the Ravens at 14. At 15, Matthew has Keldrick Falk, edge rusher Auburn to the Buccaneers. That goes along with my way of thinking as well on that. If Sonny Styles is there, then that would be great. Maybe the Buccaneers would go with C.J. Allen, off-ball linebacker, although that would seem high relative to the positional value. And when you need an elite edge rusher, they're going to go in usual fashion relatively quickly. Buck's got good size. Didn't have just eye-popping numbers at Auburn, but a solid performer. He'd be a good fit for the Bucs at 15. At 16, here's Jordan Tyson. So much like the Rams at 13, the New York Jets at 16, a thought seems to be that it's possible, at least, that one of those three top receivers would be there. If not, then maybe a corner would slide. That's still a need. The Jets didn't have any interceptions last season. In 17 games, not a single interception. It simply boggles the mind that happened. Really unprecedented. Going all the way back to the 1930s. Even back then, teams at least had a couple interceptions in a season. Anyway, but they don't need to force the issue at corner either. And if they like Tyson, and if he's healthy, you're going to like what Tyson can do for your team. Here it's the Jets taking Jordan Tyson. My reaction. Latest mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. At 17, Detroit Lions, Spencer Fano. See, I talked about this on yesterday's update. Some people see Fano as top 5, even maybe top 3 with Arizona. Although I would fade that compared with Francis Maui-Noah going there based on certain reports. But the people that are fading Fano aren't saying negative things. More like mid-first, maybe his range. Anyway, great for Detroit if he's on the board there. Solid offensive tackle out of Utah. I mean, unanimous first-team All-American, Outland Trophy winner. Getting that at 17. Get a lot of positive grading for your draft if you get that. At 18, Minnesota Vikings. Again, matching my way of thinking here with Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon. And I already know that 4.35 40-yard dash. Remember last year how remarkable it was to me that Nick Immanwori ran a 4.39. Now, granted, he wasn't a first-round pick, so those elite speeds don't always translate, but Thieneman had just a solid showing. I mean, you look at his tape from Oregon and from Purdue prior to that. And as much as Caleb Downs gets, and rightly gets, credit for his ability to read and react, Dylan's pretty good at that as well. He's got the athleticism. Safety is going to be a big need for the Vikings in all likelihood. As Harrison Smith has a change of heart. He's expected to retire. 19, Carolina Panthers, Caleb Banks. Defensive tackle, Florida. Only played in 2 games last season. Injury issues. Tremendous athleticism. When he's healthy, he's capable of doing some great things, particularly as an interior defensive lineman pass rusher. You'll notice that's a trend with these defensive tackles, their ability to pressure the quarterback as an interior defensive lineman. And the question with Banks, can he stay healthy? If he can be a tremendous performer. Here, Carolina gets Caleb Banks at 19. At 20, my reaction here, the latest mock draft from Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. 20, Matthew has Akeem Mesidor to the Cowboys. I can see that happening. I don't think Mesidor is a good fit with every team because he'll turn 25 years old next month before the draft, which is old for an NFL prospect, particularly an edge rusher, defensive lineman. But the upside is that you're not having to wait for him to develop. He's really kind of at peak level right now, age 24, 25. And Dallas needs somebody that can help right now, right away at edge rusher. It's a major need for a number of reasons. So here, Mesidor goes to the Cowboys at 20. At 21, Matthew Freedman has Omar Cooper Jr., receiver from Indiana, to the Steelers. Cooper was a late scratch for my latest mock. And we'll get to that in a little bit, talk about what Buffalo might do. Once Buffalo traded for wide receiver DJ Moore, that trade with the Chicago Bears, the Bills did their second round pick this year. Makes it unlikely they take a receiver. Especially to get Sadiq at 9. You're helping the offense out with that. But that's just speculation at this point. So here it's Cooper to the Steelers at 21. At 22, Matthew Freedman has my favorite player-to-team matchups. Venga Ioane, offensive guard, Penn State, to the LA Chargers, who need help at interior offensive line. Matthew notes here, Venga, top 10 talent, but it's just a positional value for an interior offensive lineman. Some people think Venga might go to Baltimore at 14, and that is a possibility. But others, including Matthew Freedman and myself, think it's more, at this point at least, Venga to the Chargers at 22. At 23, Monroe Freeland, offensive tackle, Georgia. Had a great showing at the NFL Combine. Really impressed people. I noticed that some analysts have moved Freeland up, talking maybe the Browns at number 6. But here he goes to the Eagles at 23, and I really like that pairing. Like, if I were to redo my mock draft right now, I'd probably switch it up and put Freeling to the Eagles at 23. If he's there, I think that would be a really good fit. At 24, the Browns in this mock for Matthew Freedman get receiver up there at number 6. Who did they get? Was it Tate? No, they went offensive line there, so that's right. So they went up there at number 6. Go with Maui Noah. 24, you go with the receiver, Denzel Boston. Boston 6'4". Big body. A very good career with the Washington Huskies, and here he goes to the Browns at 24. At 25, Chicago Bears, Caden McDonald, defensive tackle, Ohio State. Defensive line is expected to be an area of consideration for the Bears. McDonald, I normally have thought of it as being 8.5 tackles for loss. Here it's listed as 9, so maybe they round it up. Whatever the case, Caden McDonald, very skilled at getting into the backfield from an interior defensive line position. Notice how I keep saying that with those defensive tackles? Good reason. But McDonald was in a position with some tremendous talent, but having to replace a defensive line from that championship team in 2024. A lot of expectations. He performed well for the Buckeyes. Here he goes to the Bears at 25. At 26, Casey Concepcion. This interests me because this is the first I've seen somebody saying after the trade for DJ Moore, the Bills might still go with a receiver at 26. That would be very interesting. Concepcion, he showed better hands at the Combine than perhaps some of his game film indicated. He's an explosive playmaker. Really good career with Texas A&M, the Aggies. And here he goes to the Bills at 26, load up a receiver. 27, Matthew Freedman says Caden Proctor, offensive tackle, Alabama. 6'7", 352 pounds, and yet so athletic he can legitimately play guard in the NFL, and that's probably what the 49ers would need him to do. 28, Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle, Utah, to the Houston Texans. Lomu, young player, redshirt sophomore, someone that should develop over time, be a long-term, potentially really good addition to the right system. The Texans need help under their offensive line, and Lomu would provide that at 28. At 29, Kansas City Chiefs, Avion Terrell. So again, I noted the Trent McDuffie trade, which is how the Chiefs got this pick and more. But now Kansas City has to find a corner. And if you notice with this draft, you're paying much attention to these DKDB updates. I've talked about it a lot. There are some really talented corners that are expected to go in this late first round range, or at least get consideration. There's talent commensurate with this range. And if the Chiefs can find somebody that can come in, and that rookie salary is a lot different than trying to pay top money when you're up against it with a salary cap. And here it's Avion Terrell, going around of Clemson, going to the Chiefs. At 30, CJ Allen, linebacker, Georgia. One of the best off-ball linebacker prospects in the draft. Allen might be gone by this point, but if not, he'd be a great fit with the Broncos. I like that a lot if he's there for Denver. At 31, TJ Parker, edge rusher, Clemson. There are several edge rushers that should be given consideration in this range. Patriots, fresh off that AFC Championship, appearance in the Super Bowl. A few options here. And that's where, like, if someone like Ty Simpson, quarterback from Alabama, is still on the board at this point, I could see New England trading back. Somebody want to jump up there because, remember, first-round picks, the team is the extra advantage of that fifth-year team option. Is how it is. But if they stay there, TJ Parker, solid edge rusher at Clemson. He really impressed people down in Mobile during Senior Bowl week. Finally, at 32, Seattle Seahawks, Colton Hood, corner from Tennessee. Again, I think that Matthew Freedman notes here that multiple corners for Seattle slated for free agency. But he won a Super Bowl. The way it's been since the modern free agency era, 1993 to now, your players end up signing elsewhere, usually for big money deals. Anyway, so that's the latest mock draft. I want to go a little bit more into it, though, here for Matthew Freedman, because I really like this extra thing he has here at the end. His methodology explains what he does, which I like. It's the process like it's a puzzle. It's an interesting way to put it. The must includes. I really like this. As far as like, okay, if you're trying to figure out who the most likely players to be in the mix are, so be sure to check out Fantasy Life and what Matthew Freedman has here. He keeps this updated. And he has a new mock draft. He'll have his new list of what he considers 80% chance or better to go in round one. And I really can't argue with any of these. There's some like Concepcion, maybe. Caleb Banks, maybe. You're getting those like. It's interesting. CJ Allen, he's got on the want-to list. But again, off-ball linebacker is not a priority position for most in the NFL. It's interesting that he's got a Terrell and Hood there in the want-to, but not a must. It's interesting he's still got Dylan Thieneman. But again, last year, remember with Nick Immanwori, I thought he was a lock to be a first-round pick. Bring that 4.3940. Nope. Still on the board day two. Hey, it worked out for him. Seattle traded up to draft him. He won a Super Bowl. Anyway, so that's my look, my reaction. The new mock draft for Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Life. Be sure to go through the DKDB for the best of the best in here. It's human-curated, expert-curated 2026 NFL mock draft database. All right, so that's it for this DKDB update. I'm your host, Lou Pickney. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.